Hello guys, today we're going to be doing some unrealistic performance tests with my 1992 6th generation American Standard Cadet toilet. Now I bet most of you forgot I've even had this toilet because I've only showed it off like, a few times now. As you can see, the setup is not the greatest. I think the gasket or the bolt is leaking, but I'm just going to have to deal with it, unfortunately. So I'm just going to have to be kind of quick. But anyway, I've put off a performance test for a little bit. Not only are they kind of unrealistic, just shoving a bunch of bags and rags down the toilet, but I just haven't had enough time until now, so I figured now would be a good time to do it. This mostly is just going to be a just for fun video. I know these things do perform pretty well. In fact, this toilet has, I don't think, ever clogged when it was in service, unlike its round bowl Pro Flush that replaced it, which has had nothing but problems. But that's besides the point. I think this thing will do pretty well, but let's have a look and let's begin. Something you may notice is that now I have a actual setup now. Well, kind of, with the camera. As you can see, it's pretty still because I got a tripod. But one thing I want to mention before I start these performance tests is that the flush on this thing is not the greatest. It is very sluggish and very slow, and the siphon is very short as well. I don't know if that will directly affect this particular one. I know these things do pretty decently well in terms of pulling factor and stuff, but this one's a little bit botched. I don't know if it's like a defect or clogged ram jets. I did run some acid cleaner through it, so we'll see if that helps anything. But anyway, let's get started. The first test we're going to be doing is a washcloth test. I think this thing should do pretty well, so let's see how it does. Huh. Well, that is not good. Pretty in there, isn't it? Yeah, that was not the greatest start, was it? This is a new washcloth. It isn't as beaten up, but that was a little bit kind of sad, I'm not gonna lie, even though we don't crap out washcloths. I'm gonna give it one more shot. I think this might have to do with the flush or something. Let's give it a second shot. I think it should pass, but who knows? There we go. Don't know what happened the first time. I guess it may have bottled up in a trapway. It is a new washcloth, but that was a little bit sad the first time. So for the first test, gets that. But for this test, passes. So that's all that matters, I guess. So this time around, you may notice the setup is a little bit different compared to how it was before, because I'm redoing this test again. This is a plastic bag test. I'm going to do it on air first, and then I'm going to string it up and strip it down if it fails this, which it's probably going to fail because most of my toilets can't even pass this. So let's see what happens. Well, it aired up, and I kind of expected that. I'm not surprised this happened. So now I got it tied up, and it should do a little bit better. It would have passed if it didn't air it up, so let's see how this does. Huh. That was weird. So, it would have made it, but it just kind of got stuck there. That's a little disappointing, I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna try that test again and see if I can get it to do better, or if it just does the same thing. Let's give this another shot. I'm thinking what's causing this problem outside of the inconsistent flush is the bowl design. It's slanted and not flat, which might be causing some issues with the flush. Let's give it another tap and see what happens. it's stuck in the trapway. Goodness. Well, I want to give it a little bit more water and see if we can get it to flush out, but so far I'm kind of disappointed, honestly. I only filled the tank halfway, so let's see what happens. Oh boy. So, yeah, that was a fail. Man, very disappointing. I'm not even going to bother with the washcloth and grocery bag test because I know it probably would not do too well on it, but let's move on to the 25-foot test. This is standard 2-ply, so... Well, it did pass. And part of these reshoots, I'm going to throw in a bonus test. We're going to do 3 paper towels. I used to do 5, but I kind of downgraded to 3. So let's go ahead and put them in. Ain't no way. Well, I'm speechless at this point. I mean, I'm not going to really fault this thing too much for failing these unrealistic tests, but give me a break. Even my case did better than this. And back then, it wasn't really great either. But you gotta be kidding me. This wall trapway, man. Considering how bad the flush is on this, I don't know how it's going to do on the 10 bottle cap test, but you can count them in. This is basically my floater test. You would not believe how many toilets suck with floaters, old and new. And I don't really have high hopes with this one. If it had a better flush, then I think it would easily pass this, but with how this flushes, I don't know. Let's see what happens. Well, okay. That did a lot better than I expected. I think the other two might be stuck up in the opening. Well, not really the opening, but the top of the trapway. I'm not seeing the others. As I expected, the last 2 bottle caps were stuck up in there, so I had to kind of flush them out. I mean, overall, it did better than I expected, but it didn't full pass the test. So, I guess I'll give it this. I don't know. Well, I am kind of speechless. Well, I meant for this to be just for fun and not really just to base it off of how well it does performance. I just thought it'd be funny to put a bunch of tests I've done in the past down this thing and see how it does in comparison. This is probably the worst performing one. Like, even my Case Camelback in its not so good days did better on some of these unrealistic tests than this thing did. And I'm just wondering what the heck happened to this thing. This thing has always had a not so good flush, but it has never clogged in its service, nor had I really noticed any problems when I put up with this thing back in the day, because this is an old school toilet. This is one of the first few toilets I filmed back in 2011. Yeah, the flush has always been not so good, but I never noticed any other issues. Now, when I am testing it on some of the most simplistic, unrealistic tests I've done with other toilets that did better than this, I'm just wondering what is causing these problems. Because I've noticed, like, especially the last few tests, that most of them are getting, like, stuck up in the trapway. I'm not so sure if there's, like, barbs or anything. There's no buildup or anything as far as I can tell, because I felt the inner sides of the trapway wall and I felt nothing. So there is a buildup. I'm thinking there could be some barbs that's, like, catching things and just causing issues, but I've never really noticed that when this thing was installed. And another reason I think is the problem is the wall trapway. I noticed that wall trapways would do worse compared to something like a slope trapway, like a 4th generation. And the 5th generation also had a wall trapway and was also known for not performing very good. This thing is performing what I would expect for a 5th generation, not a 6th generation, because back in my old days when I did TP tests like every day, the few I've tested did pretty well. And nowadays, I don't really base them off of TP tests. I've moved far past that. And nowadays, if I do TP tests, it's just for fun and not for, like, how good is the performance based on this TP test. But this one, I don't know what's going on with this. Now, like I said, this thing has never had any problems in service. But like when I'm testing it with some of the most simplistic, unrealistic tests I've done with other toilets that did pretty well with those tests, this one just doesn't do good. And I just think the trapway design or just poor quality of this particular one is to blame. Because if I did any other 6th generation, I think it would do a lot better than how this one's doing. Now, like I said, this is not going to change my opinion on 6th generation cadets. I still like them. I still think they're pretty good. But this one does not look pretty good at all. This one is just very underwhelming. I'm not going to fault it for having bad performances for not passing a rag or something, because it isn't like we flush rags down sewer systems. But I would probably never install this particular one. I'd probably install another 6th generation if it flushed well and had no problems. But this one, hell no, I ain't installing it. I would definitely keep it for sentimental value, but I don't know what else to do with this toilet, because I was thinking about doing some like challenging unrealistic tests like I've done in the past, like with the National Line Envoy or the Elder Emblem, but there ain't no way in hell this thing's going to pass. I mean, it's going to ass hard on every test, so why even waste my time? I'm just conflicted, man. This one's just not a particularly good one. And it's a shame to say, but unfortunately, reality sucks. Again, this does not change my opinion on 6 generations as a whole, but this particular one is beyond disappointment. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the test, and I'll see you guys in the next video.